You know who I is, so let's do this. My name is Joshua One Park, and I am here to finalize the last episode of Why is Classical Music So Damn Long. So if you haven't seen the first episode yet, click over here. My name is Joshua One and welcome to Recapitulation. Okay, what did we do in the previous episode? Oh yes! When you're writing a piece of music, you definitely need a format. If you don't have a format, you will definitely be in a situation while you're writing a piece of music where you'll be stuck in the middle because you can't continue the next part of the composition. In the previous episode, I talked about three forms: binary form, ternary form, and rondo form. And if you haven't seen the previous episode, and if you're still here, well, go back to the previous episode because you are constantly wasting my time! The sonata form is a little bit similar to the ternary form, and it kind of mixed up with a bit of a binary form, and it kind of have a mixed up with a bit of a rondo form. So it's kind of like a deformed version of the ternary form. However, in today's lecture, I'm going to be talking about a sonata form, a classical era sonata allegro form, which is a little bit different to the other sonatas, including sonata da camera and sonata da chiesa. Sonata da camera is a chamber music, which is usually composed for multiple instruments together, just a little small group of ensemble. And sonata da chiesa is a church music. Why did I mention that? Because I'm all about the originality. But this sonata form has three parts, just like a ternary form, but a little bit different compared to the ternary form, which instead of going A, B, A, scratch that, exposition, development, and recapitulation. In each chapter, I'm going to explain to you what in the mother of God does these do in a sonata. Exposition, a clear and full explanation to an idea or theory. Exposition is basically a main part of this composition. The entire sonata predominantly focuses onto this exposition because it's like a motherboard in a computer. The exposition contains two themes, and it has a transition in between and a codetta. Codetta is like a conclusion, so if there's a codetta in an exposition, it's kind of like a conclusion of exposition. The most important part of this exposition is that the first and a second theme is relevant to each other. However, it has a little difference to the point that it kind of sounds like a completely different music. But in order to make it sound relevant, they add a transition in between. And to conclude the exposition, they add the closing section. As I said before, the codetta. Now, before I go into detail, let me explain to you what is a major and a minor first. Major is when the music becomes very happy, cheerful, and some like very positive. However, when the music turns into minor, it becomes sad, negative, and miserable. It just brings up with that negative atmosphere. But sometimes you can bring some angry music at this point too, because that's what the minor does. But if it goes back to major, it brings back into happy little music. When a sonata is in the major key, definitely the first thing is going to be in the major key. I mean, of course, it's basically common sense. But the problem is, the second theme is in a completely different key. It's risen up, dominant of the original key. Meaning, the dominant is another word for fifth. So if it's risen up from fifth distance, it's gonna be in a different key than the original key. For example, when the piece is in C major, the fifth note of C is going to be G. C, D, E, F, G. So the second theme is going to be G major. But when the sonata is in a minor key, the second theme is not risen dominant, usually. It is modulated into a relative major. For example, when the piece is in C minor, the relative major will be E flat major. Thus, the first theme will be C minor and the second theme will be E flat major. If you don't understand what relative major or relative minor is, watch this episode so you will fully understand what that means. So here's an example of a piece by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Development. The process in which someone or something grows or changes and becomes more advanced. Damn! More advanced. Which is why the sonata form has a section where it has that climactic moment. Usually, that climactic moment is the development part. Just like the actual word develop, music actually develops and builds up the tension and it gets into the climax, and that climax is the recapitulation, which is the next part after the development. In the development, composers usually copy the specific part from the exposition. It could be from one of the two themes, either the transition or the coda. And they usually copy that same part and they repeat it multiple times with different keys. In the beginning of the Mozart Sonata, he copied the coda of the exposition. But this time he has modulated it into G minor from G major. Now we move into the climax. Recap, to repeat the main points of an explanation or description. Recap is a verb, but in this case, recapitulation is a noun. Because in music, they consider that as the thing. In the recapitulation, they repeat the same exposition, which is why it's called the recap. This was the reason why I said that the sonata form is very similar to the ternary form, because the first part repeats again at the end of the composition. But in the sonata form, the recapitulation has a little twist. In the exposition, the first theme and the second theme was in a different key. However, in the recapitulation, both themes are in the same key. They're using the same scenario for major sonatas and minor sonatas. Now, before I show you this example, I'm looking at the score right now, and I can see that Mozart is trying to be original as possible. Because he changed the format actually, and instead of going to C major, as how sonata forms are usually composed, he instead goes to F major for the first theme. And then the second theme gets back into C major. So, here it is. the sonata form, but it just doesn't have the word sonata in the title. Examples: symphonies, string trios, string quartets, concerto, and a smaller version of a sonata, also known as sonatine. So when you listen to a composition with these titles, look for the exposition, development, and recapitulation. And when you listen to the exposition, try to find the first theme and the second theme. Then it'll make your life so much easier, and it's so much easier for you to listen to compositions that are really, really long. So, let's get smart. Do you agree with my lecture? If you disagree or if you have any other topics that you want me to talk about, leave a comment down below and I'll see you in the next lecture. My name is Joshua Warren Parkin, and as always, take care.